Hi guys, today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite subjects, composting, and what could possibly go wrong if you try this at home. Composting is actually really easy, but there are a few things you can do to screw it up. I know this from personal experience. Along my composting journey of the past few years, I've made a few mistakes and I'm going to tell you about them so you don't have to make them yourself. However, I have also just come home to my second successful batch of compost this year, and it's only July, so I'm here to give you hope and tell you it really is possible. You may say, what if I don't have a yard? That's okay, neither do I. I'm going to tell you how to compost on a balcony as well as outside. If you don't have a balcony or a deck, there are ways to compost inside. I've never personally done them, so I'm not going to talk about them, but you can find other videos about that. You also may say, why is there a composting video on a channel called Breathe, Move, Bliss? Composting is closely related to breathing. We need plants to give us oxygen to breathe, and plants love compost, nutrient-rich soil. And also the bliss part related as well. Composting is so rewarding and fascinating. To see the transformation, trust me, you're gonna love it. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the simple step-by-step way to compost, and then we'll get into the things that could possibly go wrong. All you need to compost on a balcony or outside is first to get a bucket. This is the bucket that I got. Okay, technically it's an outdoor trash can. I'm calling it a bucket. The important thing is it has a lid, and I'm really happy with the size of it, and I like the color. It's kind of camouflaged back here in the corner of my balcony. But once you have your buckets of whatever size and shape that you prefer, you are going to get a drill and you're going to drill holes in the sides of the buckets. Important to note, you're just putting holes in the side, none on the bottom because you don't want any liquid leaking out from there, and none on the top either. You don't want any rain coming in, and it just looks nicer with no holes in the top. So this is how many I put in. You can even put more if you want to. The purpose of the holes is to let the air come in. Once you have your bucket with your holes, you are ready to start composting. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna add your ingredients. Here is an example of what I typically add. We have some papaya skins, some green onion peelings, there's some broccoli, apple. So basically any fruit and vegetable peelings that you wanna put in there. Also paper towels. Paper towels are great. The important thing is that you don't want to add any dairy or meat or oil products. So if you've used that paper towel to wipe up anything like that, then don't put them in there, but otherwise it's fine. Also, I put a lot of these pulp egg cartons. These are really great. I like to just rip them up into smaller pieces. And these are great for creating little air pockets in your compost as well. So obviously if you have foam egg cartons made of styrofoam, you don't want to put those in there, but these pulp ones are just made of recycled paper and water, so they are biodegradable. And just a note about the egg cartons, I peel off these stickers, and if it leaves glue behind, then I don't put that part of the egg carton in there because I don't want that in with my plant food. You can also put dried leaves in there. Those are really great. Excellent source of carbon. You can put paper towel rolls and toilet paper rolls if they don't have the glue on there. Okay, so to get a little scientific, there is a specific ratio of carbon to nitrogen that is ideal for compost. It's between 25:1 and 30:1 carbon to nitrogen, so way more carbon than nitrogen. This is the point that used to stress me out a little when I first started composting and I was researching, and I'm like, oh my God, they have these charts on exactly how much carbon and nitrogen different foods contain, but don't worry about it. You don't have to get that detailed or technical. Basically, just focus on the moisture level. When you're putting in things like the coffee grinds and the fruit and vegetable peels, that's gonna really be giving you a lot of nitrogen and a lot of moisture. So you're gonna need that dry stuff like the paper towels or the egg cartons or the dried leaves to provide the dryness so that you can get to a good moisture level that's great food for the microorganisms that are gonna be breaking down all this matter and turning it into compost. And by the way, it is those microorganisms that are creating the seeming magic of the transformation of compost. And I'm not going to get into the technical details, but I will put some links down below if you want to know more of all the science behind this. Okay, so you've added your first fruit and vegetable peelings and your first dry matter, and now you're gonna add the secret ingredients. And what is that secret ingredients? Dirt. Yes, you're gonna add some beautiful nutrient-rich dirt to kickstart this transformation. And why is dirt the secret ingredients? Because it's full of those microorganisms that are going to break down your compost ingredients. You can also use some leftover finished compost to start your next batch instead of dirt, if you like. How much? Well, it's no exact science, just a few spoonfuls to start with, or a small shovelful, however much you feel like. You really can't have too much. And then you are going to just leave it until you come back a day later, a few days later, to add your next batch of peelings and then your dry matter. Really, I recommend every time you add some fruit peelings, if possible, add some dry matter as well. And if you notice that it's getting too dry, then you can add more fruit and vegetable peelings. If you notice it's getting too wet, then add more dry matter. Very simple. If you notice that it's not seeming to break down, you can add some more dirt. Another point I want to mention, there are so many different ways of composting, right? It's definitely possible to compost without stirring anything. The stirring definitely helps the process along because you're ensuring that oxygen gets into there and that it doesn't get too hot. Naturally, during the process of composting, you will be creating heat. However, if the heat gets too high, that can kill off the microorganisms that are breaking down everything. As long as you're stirring it every so often, that probably won't happen. And then you just keep going until your bucket gets relatively full. In my case, what has happened is that both times, it's been 2 to 3 months probably that I've been at home and just adding some every day and stirring, and you'll see the breakdown happening, and it's quite interesting. But since you're constantly adding more in there, it's never gonna be completely finished while you keep adding more. So in my case, I've traveled out of the country and been gone for about a month, and it's just sat there untouched for a month, and then when I come back, it's completely broken down. So if you don't have plans to travel anywhere for a few weeks, that's okay. Maybe you just want to have 2 buckets so that when one of them gets ready to just sit there for a while, you can let it sit, and then you can start working with the other one. All right, let's take a look at the finished results. Dun, da, da, here it is. Beautiful, nutrient-rich soil. I know, it's so exciting, right? Let me show you a closer look. Dun, da, da, da. And most likely, you're gonna find little pieces that haven't broken down. Like this time I experimented by putting a bunch of coconut husks in there. These haven't quite broken down, but I think some of them might have broken down. I'm not sure, I did put a lot in there. If you put any avocado pits, you'll probably find that those haven't broken down. Here's some more of the coconut fibers. So whatever hasn't broken down, you can just take out or sift it out. Like here's some of the egg cartons that haven't broken down yet. But overall, it's this really just beautiful mud. And I just want to mention, this one is pretty moist. I know that's not a popular word. I really don't say it often myself. But the last batch I had was really a lot drier. I don't know which is better. I guess I liked the drier. Like usually you'll probably see compost as drier than this, but I still like it. It still smells good, and I think my plants are gonna love it. So that's how easy composting can be if all goes well. Now let's talk about what could possibly go wrong. Mistake number 1. I don't know if anyone else would be dumb enough to make this mistake, but it's one that I made a few years ago in Cambodia when I was composting in a bucket in my yard in an area that was open air, so exposed to rain. For some reason, I decided to drill holes in the top of the lid. What happened is that this filled with water, it became a disgusting mess, smelled terrible, had to just throw everything out and start over. I didn't actually throw it out. I think I dug a hole and buried it and then started over. So no holes in the lid. Number 2, something else that happened in Cambodia to me is that it just took much longer than expected. 6 months had gone by and it had transformed, but it hadn't turned into actual soil. What was the problem there? I did not add the secret ingredient. I did not add dirt to the mix. By the way, it's definitely possible to compost without adding dirt, especially if you're dealing with huge quantities. Then also if you're composting just straight on the earth, so you have that contact with the earth itself. But we're just talking about bucket composting here. So if you have not added dirt and your compost is not transforming, try adding some dirt and see what happens. Possible issue number 3 is one that I experienced here in Papua New Guinea for the first time. About 2 or 3 weeks after I had started the compost, I discovered when opening the lid, hordes of tiny little flies buzzing around. They're really tiny. I don't know if they're fruit flies. Maybe they didn't look like fruit flies that I've seen before, but they were some kind of tiny fly. And it was a problem because they were getting into the house as well, and then flying around was not a livable situation. So how I resolved that was 2 parts. The first part was getting a small Tupperware bowl, putting some water and a few drops of dish soap in there, microwaving it for about 10 seconds to make it aromatic and appealing to the little flies. Then I placed that in the bucket, put the lid on, left it overnight, and in the morning there were quite a few sorry, I have some kale in this container right now, just ignore that. And in the morning there were quite a few dead little bugs floating around, but that was not enough to completely resolve the problem. The other part of the solution was electric fly swatter. This thing is absolutely brilliant. If you're a Buddhist and don't believe in killing any insects, this will not work for you. I will say that I wished all of the little flies great happiness in their next life, but this works like a charm. And between the 2 of those things, that took care of the problem. So no more little fly infestation. This is something that has never happened before, so hopefully you won't get the little flies. But if you do, you know how to take care of that. Those are the main issues that I've encountered myself. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you will have great fun and success on your composting journey. If you have any questions or comments, just let me know in the comments below. And I will include links below on how to compost in other ways. Composting in trenches is awesome, just by digging holes in the ground if you have a big yard. Also, composting in bins outside is great. You can make them really beautiful. You can find some awesome building plans online for now if you have the space, or just some future inspiration. All right, have a great day and happy composting.